Build Back Better. President Joe Biden's Democratic agenda faces a critical week in Congress. Giving thanks. Cardinal Raymond Burke shares his gratitude after an outpouring of prayer during his battle with COVID-19. Consumed by lava. A Spanish church falls victim to a volcano. And reason for hope. Pope Francis sends a message ahead of World Youth Day. On EWTN News Nightly for Monday, September 27th, 2021. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. I'm Tracy Sable. It is a high-stakes week on Capitol Hill with a schedule full of must-pass items, two multi-trillion-dollar infrastructure bills, raising the debt ceiling, and funding the government before it runs out of money Thursday at midnight. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales reports.
It's a make-or-break week for Democrats. The $3.5 trillion human infrastructure bill is inching forward. Democrats say an agreement has been reached on how to pay for it.
The White House, the House, and the Senate have reached agreement on a framework that will pay for any final negotiated agreement.
Republicans tell me taxes will go up for all goods and services.
That's why things like a methane tax, for example, or any type of an import fee on carbon adds to the cost of things that everybody needs. And it's a regressive tax. It hits the lowest income people the hardest.
On the House side, Democratic leadership is trying to make progress on both infrastructure bills, but decided to postpone a vote on the $1.2 trillion legislation until Thursday. Meanwhile, the battle continues over the $3.5 trillion human infrastructure package. Moderate and progressive Democrats are battling over incentives like cleaner energy and lowering prescription drug costs. Over the weekend, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi wrote, quote, "We are now working together with the Senate and the White House on changes to this historic legislation, which includes the child tax credit, child care, paid family and medical leave, home health care, universal pre-K, and more." House Republicans tell me Democrats want to spend on the backs of our children.
We're seeing a higher rate of inflation now than we've seen in decades. It's a direct result of these policies that require printing money that we don't have, and that will require raising taxes on small businesses, on the American people.
Both the House and the Senate need to come to an agreement to keep the government running before Thursday when it runs out of money. Plus, the debt ceiling still needs to be raised. Democrats hope to get that done before next month to pay its bills on time. At the Capitol, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
Joining us now is Joel Griffith, Research Fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Joel, welcome back. Always so great to see you. As we heard from Eric, there is certainly a lot going on at the Capitol this week, including negotiations on those massive infrastructure bills. Let's talk more about that and where all that money is coming from and how it will end up impacting taxpayers.
Well, Tracy, thank you for having me. And it is an outright lie for this administration and for Congress to continue calling this an infrastructure bill. The fact is, more than 95% of the so-called infrastructure bill does not go to traditional infrastructure projects. We know that the end goal of this legislation is to fulfill the promises of the radical far left to fundamentally remodel the American economy. They want to turn our economy into a government-run enterprise where DC bureaucrats will decide every aspect of our economic lives.
Yeah, Joel, and to your point, I want to bring this up. On Friday, President Joe Biden actually said that the $1.9 trillion infrastructure bill will, quote, fundamentally change the structure and nature of the economy. I want to ask you more. What do you think he meant by those comments? I mean, is the end game here to actually do away with our current economic system as we know it?
Oh, without a doubt, this program is a rejection of free market enterprise. It puts the power in the hands of the DC elite to determine not just how much our taxes are, but they're going to determine how our economic resources are used and how our investments are made. Just look at the green energy component. The legislation has almost $1 trillion to green energy projects that we know will, at the end of the day, result in higher costs, not just for our air conditioning and our heating and our travel, but higher costs to produce the goods that we rely upon to give us a high quality of life. But it goes beyond even these industrial components. This has a big expansion of socialized health through expanding Medicaid. It also ensures that children as young as 3 years old will be sent to government schools. This is point by point. This is not infrastructure. This is a fundamental reworking of the American economy in a way that looks a lot more like communist China than anything we who have enjoyed freedom have grown accustomed to.
Well, I want to change gears here just a little bit, Joel. We've been hearing a lot about these supply chain delays lately. In fact, Costco said it's now putting limitations on some key items like bottled water and toilet paper. And Nike has also said its production and delivery of its shoes will be delayed. What do you think is triggering this? And is this an indicator of a bigger supply chain issue?
Well, if you go back over the last year and a half, we've had so many restrictions that were put in place, not just on our lives and it goes to going out to eat or going to work, but factories as well, production centers, shipping companies, all have endured a lot of COVID-related restrictions. And so we've seen bottlenecks both overseas. Of course, we rely on China quite a bit for our imports, and we see numerous times, even over the last few months, where ports, entire terminals have been shut down for weeks on end because of COVID in China. But we also saw factories that were shut down. Here in the United States, we have nearly 60 cargo ships that are basically stranded off the coast of California right now that account for a lot of our imports. Part of the problem are our own COVID restrictions, but also these ports are not staying open 24/7 and they're not staying open on the weekends. So this is a very big problem. But in addition to all the shipping bottlenecks, we now have a situation we've had hundreds of billions of dollars infused into the economy thanks to government spending and borrowing. And we see consumers that are flush with cash and the demand is high, but supply has not been able to keep up with that. And that is compounding the supply chain issues.
Joel, we have probably 30 seconds left or so, but you brought up China, so I want to bring this up. Last week, the Chinese company Evergrande was in the headlines for being on the verge of defaulting on its payments and possibly causing, a ripple effect, that is, around the world. Any updates on that and how that might possibly be impacting us here at home in the U.S.?
Well, Evergrande is one of the world's biggest companies by revenue. It's one of the top 500. It's one of the biggest real estate developers in China, but also has its hands in many other businesses. But the over-leverage, the $300 billion of debt that company took on is really emblematic of a problem across China, where thanks to the communist government's intervention in the economy, you've seen many, many businesses, including state-owned or state-invested enterprises that have taken on an immense amount of debt. And the collapse of Evergrande is emblematic of a mounting debt crisis in China.
Well, Joel, thank you so much. Always great having you on and getting your analysis.
Thank you.
President Joe Biden rolls up his sleeve for a COVID-19 booster shot. Just last week, federal regulators recommended a third dose of the Pfizer vaccine for Americans age 65 or older, even though millions of Americans have yet to get their first shot. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen.
Tracy, while President Joe Biden, who is 78 years old, has been pushing booster shots, millions of Americans refuse to get any shots. The president continues to call it a pandemic of the unvaccinated and is pleading with Americans to get immunized to slow the spread of the virus.
Over 77% of adults have gotten at least one shot. About 23% haven't gotten any shots. And that distinct minority is causing an awful lot of us, an awful lot of damage for the rest of the country.
Some are calling on the U.S. to pause third shots to free up the vaccine supply for the rest of the world. But the Biden administration says it can do both. It's already purchased 1 billion doses for poor nations. Meantime, the Biden administration is announcing immigration changes. It's renewing efforts to shield hundreds of thousands of so-called dreamers from deportation that came to the U.S. as young children. And overseas, President Joe Biden's national security advisor, Jake Sullivan, is traveling to Saudi Arabia to meet with the Crown crown prince there. They're trying to end the war in Yemen, home to one of the world's worst humanitarian disasters. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
Cardinal Raymond Burke is expressing gratitude as he begins his recovery and rehabilitation after being hospitalized with COVID-19. Cardinal Burke says that it'll be several more weeks before he is able to resume his normal activities. He has been staying in a house near his family since his release from the hospital 3 weeks ago. The 73-year-old credits God for his survival, which seemed uncertain at times. He also went on social media last week to thank the faithful for their prayers. California Governor Gavin Newsom signed a law Friday to replace a vandalized statue of St. Junipero Serra with a memorial for Native Americans at the state capitol. Sacramento's bishop had opposed the law for not defending the saint's protection for Native people. The Republic of San Marino has voted to legalize abortion in the first 12 weeks of pregnancy. Abortion advocates claim victory. More than 70% approve the measure. The referendum's leader calls the result, quote, a step forward. But the Bishop of San Marino says, quote, we will work consistently to bear witness to the gospel of life for a culture and a policy that is favorable to the family. By more than 60%, Swiss voters have passed a referendum to legalize same-sex marriage effective next year. Switzerland's Catholic bishops had previously warned against changing the marriage law. Switzerland allowed civil unions in 2007. Canada's Catholic bishops formally apologized for past abuses in the country's residential school system. A statement says, quote, we, the Catholic bishops of Canada, express our profound remorse and apologize unequivocally. We are fully committed to the process of healing and reconciliation. School conditions are blamed for deaths of more than 4,000 Native children over several decades. A strong earthquake has struck the Greek island of Crete. The 5.8 quake left at least one person dead and 20 others injured. In a village near the epicenter, homes, businesses, and churches are damaged. Rock slides have occurred near the country's fourth largest city. Aftershocks have continued. On the Spanish island of La Palma, lava from an erupting volcano has toppled a church. Dramatic footage shows the moment its bell tower collapsed. The volcano began erupting last week, destroying more than 400 buildings and causing several thousand to evacuate. In Germany's elections yesterday, the center-left Social Democrats won a narrow minority victory over former Chancellor Angela Merkel's Union Party. Merkel will remain in office until the completion of negotiations to form a coalition government. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin is celebrating his party's recent parliamentary victory.
Но сейчас хочу вас поздравить.
Putin shares congratulations during a video conference. His United Russia party did lose some seats, but still holds a supermajority in the Duma, retaining power to amend the national constitution. A year ago, such a change enabled Putin to remain Russia's president until 2036. Google was in a European Union court today to appeal a record antitrust penalty. A 2018 decision ruled against the Android operating system for abusive market dominance. The fine was $5 billion. Google claims that Android actually opened markets, increased competition, and lowered consumer prices. The tech giant is also appealing two other judgments. Coming up, chaotic withdrawal, the fallout to the U.S. pullout from Afghanistan. The remains of Father Emil Kapaun are now home in Kansas. A servant of God, Father Kapaun served heroically during 2 wars as a U.S. Army captain and chaplain. He died as a POW in North Korea at age 35. Private and public services will be celebrated over the next 2 days and will air on EWTN. Visit our website for airing times. Over the weekend, the Taliban killed 4 individuals who had allegedly been taking part in a kidnapping. The Taliban put 3 of the bodies in different areas of the city to deter other criminals. Taliban officials hung one of the bodies from a crane in the Central Square. And joining me now is Dennis Ross, former member of Congress and director of the American Center for Political Leadership at Southeastern University. Representative Ross, welcome back. Always so great to see you. I want to get to Afghanistan in just a moment, but first, I'd like to start here at home. As you know, the deadline for a government shutdown is looming and is really just a few days away. Can you talk to us more about that and what could happen if the government does shut down? I mean, how will that affect you and me?
Well, you know, I lived through several of those when I was in Congress, and they are significant, and they can have some impact that are very painful on people that are dependent on government checks. But, you know, this is a political battle. I remember when I was in Congress one time, the open-air parks in D.C. were not only closed down, but they were fenced in, so that they actually had to pay people to keep people from going into a public area, which was unusual. So you could tell that it was very political. They will resolve something because, you know, when I was in Congress, Republicans, we were in control of the House, not always the Senate. And when I was there, when Obama was there, but they would always blame it on the minority party. Here, they can't blame it on anybody. The Democrats are in control. You know, so how is this going to happen? They have the votes in order to avoid a government shutdown. It'll be curious to see how the factions play out. The progressive faction in the House, what are they going to call for? How are the moderates going to be? What's going to happen in the Senate? What's Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema going to do in the Senate to make sure there's not a government shutdown? There's going to be a lot of horse trading. But ultimately, it would not surprise me if they actually did shut down. Emergency services, essential services would, of course, continue. TSA, things of that nature, air traffic controllers, police, fire, you know, we'll still have all that. There might be a delay on some Social Security checks. I don't know if they're going to cover that or not. But it's a political football.
Yeah. And I think, you know, we reported on this earlier. It's really an important week for President Biden and his two infrastructure bills. How do you see this all playing out? And also, what is the cost, do you think, politically for President Biden and the Democrats? Well,
you know, they've really put a lot in this $3.5 trillion what I consider to be a serious pork barrel spending bill for that's somewhat infrastructure that has everything from immigration to who knows what in it. The $1 trillion, the just under $1 trillion plan that came out of the compromise in the Senate was a bipartisan effort, and that using the congressional budget, Office of Congressional Budget, that they were able to say that it's a paid for, meaning that we don't have to raise taxes for, we're going to take it from here, take it from there, take it from projected incomes that we anticipate if you see a growth in the economy. All that, of course, is just smoke and mirrors, but it's what Congress uses in order to justify their expenditures. That has a much better chance of passing because it is bipartisan in the Senate, and even if the Republicans in the House vote against it, there's still enough Democrats to get that through. I would say that the $3.5 trillion package that has been, you know, really at stake here is going to be difficult to get through. Again, you know, they're trying to, the progressives in the House and in the Senate are really saying, you know, do away with the filibuster rule. We can get this done with 50 votes in the Senate, but can they? Again, Joe Manchin, Kristen Sinema probably are going to keep that from happening. They come from conservative states. They're moderate Democrats. That would really taint their reputation if they were to allow that to happen. Who knows what may happen, though, in some horse trading. We saw it happen, you know, with Obamacare back 12 years ago. What was done there to appease, you know, the abortion issue, and unfortunately, that didn't play out well for pro-life people. My concern is that the infrastructure bill will be bargained through, and then we'll have well over $33 trillion in debt in this country.
Yeah, we're not a whole lot of time left now, but really got to get to the Afghanistan question. Now, Taliban officials have said they're going to return to executions and amputations of body parts as punishment for crimes, as gruesome as this all is. Are you surprised by that? And is this something, do you think, that we should have expected, even though the Taliban that has claimed that they would rule in a kinder way?
Oh, absolutely. It's something we should have expected. This is a travesty. There is no way. At one point, we wouldn't even negotiate with them. Now we're giving them not only our military equipment, but we've basically rolled over and let them do whatever they want to do. You know, we are supposed to be a proponent for human rights. We're allowing something to happen that is going to be so devastating. Oh, but they'll say they're not going to be public executions. But like you pointed out earlier, after they execute them, they're going to put them out publicly anyway as a deterrent. You know, even under the best rules of due process, this would be a far stretch. I'm very concerned about this. The logical conclusion of this is that we're going to see terrorism not only become rampant, but we're going to see it, of course, come across into our borders again. There is a little or no control that this administration has over Afghanistan. There is little or no influence they will have at this point with Taliban. Taliban, you know, is desperately seeking to get International Monetary Fund recognition, to be getting financing from other nations. They're trying to be a developed country and show that they're a government. But with these kinds of atrocities that they're promoting here, executions and amputations, and of course there will be no due process of law, it's going to be a long stretch for this country to ever be recognized under the Taliban in any means whatsoever. You know, they'll be even below Iran, in my opinion, and when it comes to human rights.
Oh, Representative Ross, thanks so much for coming on. Always appreciate you weighing in. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Up next, protecting the planet. How people at a summer camp are trying to carry out the Holy Father's mission. And resisting the devil. Pope Francis encourages Catholics to be open and welcoming.
Occorre anche vigilare sulla chiusura nella Chiesa.
Pope Francis says the church must be open and welcoming. At a Sunday address to pilgrims at the Vatican, the Holy Father says close-minded attitudes are the root of so many evils. He adds division and confusion often come from the devil. Well, the Holy Father also has released a message for World Youth Day in November. He is asking attendees to testify joyfully to the presence of Christ in their lives. Pope Francis adds Christ is alive and wants to help all of us. The event in November is part of the lead-in to the International World Youth Day in 2023 in Portugal. And finally tonight, a summer camp in Switzerland late last month brought together more than 36 young adults to discuss how to best protect the environment. The Eco Summer Camp aimed at improving the planet for future generations. It was one of the events in the Season of Creation, an initiative based on the Holy Father's encyclical Laudato Si. Joining us now is Valerio Ciriello, Chaplain at the University of Lucerne in Switzerland. Valerio, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. Can you tell us a little bit more about this summer camp? How many people took part, where they were from, and also what were some of the projects?
Yes. So 53 people took part all over Europe, resident at least in 14 different countries. The group was quite heterogeneous. There were students, young professionals, going from engineer to medicine, to mathematician, to teachers, to some professors as well, the PhD students. And it took place 1 week for the first time here in Switzerland, and is going to take place in the next year again and over again, I hope. And this project comes from a personal experience that I learned at the Schumacher College in 2019. And in England, and my experience at the campus de la Transition Écologique in France, close from Paris. I got inspired by this experience, and I wanted to replay this experience here in Switzerland.
And why does it specifically target young adults?
Because I think, the ecological challenges, the climate change, the earth destruction, it's affecting especially the young generation. No? If you are 80, you have a life expectancy maybe of 5 or 10 years, but they are the young generation who are going to bear the weight of these challenges for the next 60, 70 years. and they have to take the decision. They are going to be in charge, either if they are going to work in enterprises, in politics, or in civil society. They are going to take the decision, not those who are already in retirement.
And before I let you go, in what ways did the Holy Father's encyclical inspire this project?
Well, the care about the Earth is, of course, the main object, and especially what I like it in the encyclical, the whole part, but especially the idea that we have to go out from our comfort zone, out from our small environment, let's say Catholic environment or Christian environment, to go on and to try to walk a path together with everyone who is willing to change the world how it's going on today.
Valerio, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for all that you do. We appreciate it. Valerio Ciriello, chaplain at the University of Lucerne in Switzerland. Thank you again.
Welcome. Have a nice day. Bye.
And we thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sable. Good night and God bless.